And now it's my honor to introduce you to Swami Karunananda Ji, our beloved Swami Ji. Swami Karunananda has had over 50 years experience teaching all aspects of yoga. Today, she specializes in programs that focus on the science of meditation, the philosophy of yoga, yogic breathing techniques for better health and well-being, and personal transformation. In 1989, she developed the Integral Yoga Teacher Training Program in Raja Yoga, and in 1991, one in meditation. She has since conducted many courses training students to skillfully impart these teachings. In 1975, she was initiated as a monk into the Holy Order of Sannyasis. She has served as president of Satchidananda Ashram-Yogaville and in California, as well as director of the Integral Yoga Institutes in San Francisco and Santa Barbara. She currently serves on the board of trustees and is the chairperson of the Spiritual Life Board at the ashram in Virginia. She compiled and edited the Lotus Prayer Book and Enlightening Tales as told by Sri Swami Satchidananda. She also served as a contributing editor for The Breath of Life, Integral Yoga Pranayama, and is also the author of the book Awakening, Aspiration to Realization Through Integral Yoga. And that book is actually currently being read by Mataji during our lunch readings. So if you've been enjoying the lunch readings, you have Swami Karunananda Ji to thank for that. And this is going to be a wonderful session. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Swami Ji.
Is he going to turn? Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, this is the game plan for today. You can ask me about anything except geography. I am terrible when it comes to geography. Spin me around 3 times in my own neighborhood, and I'm disoriented. So, anything else is open game, okay? And if you don't have questions, I'll just start talking. So it might be better if you have questions, but we can proceed however you wish. Yes?
What is the yantra?
What is the yantra? Excellent. That is the yantra.
What yantra is it?
Okay. So you want more information. This is the yantra for integral yoga. It's actually based on a vision that Swami Satchidananda had, which is a version of the Bhuvaneshwari yantra. Bhuvaneshwari is considered the queen of the universe, the supreme goddess of the universe. And as such, this yantra represents the entire cosmos. You'll see it all over the place here. In fact, when you go to Lotus next, if you're upstairs in the sanctuary, it's a 3-dimensional yantra, with the circular portion in the middle as the Meru, and then the alcoves with all the symbols of the faiths. So, is it okay if I go back here, Alejandra? Okay, I'll point to it as I explain it. So, can you all see me? In the Hindu teachings, the universe goes through stages of potentiality and manifestation. It goes into a potential state, and then when it's about to manifest, the first emanation is sound, vibration. This is similar to the biblical teaching. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Rig Veda has a similar statement, almost word for word. So the first emanation is sound, vibration, but you can't see vibration. So from vibration or sound, we proceed to light. And from light to form. The dot in the center, which is called a bindu, represents that first particle of form in the manifestation, okay? This is the beginning of the created world as we experience it. It's surrounded by 3 circles. These represent the 3 basic qualities of the creation, or the 3 basic energies that help it to manifest. It's called the gunas. Have you heard the term gunas? If you're yoga students, I'm sure you have. There are 3, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva represents balance, harmony, purity. Rajas, activity, motion, passion. Tamas represents inertia, stability, or dullness. Everything in the creation is a combination in different proportions of those 3 gunas. And I'll take a moment to digress here. If you study philosophy, science, the arts, you will see that many great thinkers looking out on the phenomenal world had the same intuitive experience, but they described it in different ways. They speak of 3 main forces that go to make up the creation. So, simply put, the scientists, back when their description of the world was pretty basic, they spoke of 3 particles: protons, electrons, and neutrons. Protons would correspond to sattva, balanced, centered, harmonious. Electrons, rajas, always moving, never still. Tamas would correspond to neutrons. It's the neutrons, basically, that give the weight, the heaviness to an atom. So just like everything in creation is a combination of those 3 different particles, distributed in different ways, the yogi says it's the 3 gunas. So to make it even more clear, let's say you're looking at a beautiful white rose. Sattva would be predominant. Rajas and tamas would be there, but sattva would be predominant. If you're looking at an erupting volcano, rajas would be prominent there. If you're looking at a slab of granite, tamas would be the one that was predominant. Okay, when you come out from there, you have what can be seen as either a 6-pointed star or 2 intersecting triangles. An upward-facing triangle, a downward-facing triangle. They represent all the energy in the universe, what are called positive forces and negative forces. We're not talking about something moralistic here. We're talking about duality, positive, negative. So the upward-facing triangle represents all positive or masculine forces in the universe. Downward-facing triangle, all feminine or negative forces of the universe. Absolutely equal, absolutely balanced. If you look at it in terms of 6 little triangles going around, they can represent the 5 senses and the mind. We're going out as creation is differentiating more. Then we have the rows of petals, 8 and then 16. There are esoteric significances behind the number, but essentially it can be understood. Petals represent flowers. Flowers are so often given as a sign of love, affection, adoration. So the message is the rest of the creation manifests through the force of love. It's love that is the promulgator, infiller, purpose, and source of the entire creation. Then you get to 3 outer circles. They represent the different levels or planes of existence. The closest one, the causal plane. The middle one, the astral plane. And the outermost ring, the physical plane. So we're all located somewhere on that outer circle right now. And then around it, you have 4 brackets, which are called the gates of the yantra. And if you notice, they're open, and that's to signify that the universe is infinite and unending. Vast, vast. So that essentially is the yantra. And then at one point, many decades ago, Swami Satchidananda added the symbols of the basic faiths. I think this was one of the most brilliant things he ever did. At the same time, he changed the goal of yoga, the goal of integral yoga in a significant way as well, to emphasize the importance of not only gaining spiritual realization for yourself, but seeing that same self in everyone and everything throughout the creation, so we could live together harmoniously as one universal family. So starting with Hinduism, and this is reflected in the shrine, the same order, it's regarded as the oldest faith. And then, in order of when the faith appeared on earth, Judaism, Shinto, Taoism, Buddhism, skip that for a moment, Christianity, Islam, and then Gurudev added Sikh and tribal African and Native American, because he wanted the people who built this country and were originally here to be honored in the yantra. Even that wasn't enough. He added the symbol with the stars so that all other known faiths were included. Even that wasn't inclusive enough. The top, the empty circle, all unknown faiths. That could be faiths yet to come, maybe people's personal faiths that never get articulated in the public forum. The idea was to be, inclusivity is a big topic now. For him, it was the ultimate inclusivity. And if you go down to Lotus and you walk to the back of the All Faiths Hall where the restrooms are, there are displays. On one side are some of the main lesser-known faiths that we identified. On the other side, something we made up called secular faiths. Again, to include absolutely everyone. Not everyone wants to hear about a God. And when you say God, most people figure, the bearded guy in a white robe on a throne floating in the clouds. And most people, or many people, don't want to relate in that way. So secular faiths, some people search for that higher truth through philosophy, through science, through the arts, through ecology, through service. So we have represented there Mozart's magic flute, Einstein's theory of general relativity, Rachel Carson, who was the first ecologist, her book, and Declaration of Independence, and from the United Nations, the flags of all the nations. So it was the most inclusive representation that we could possibly give. And it seems like today, ever more so, that message is so important. The importance of not only embracing a spiritual path for ourselves, but sharing the benefits, sharing that insight with others. That's the way to change the world, ultimately. We're not going to change it through treaties or battle officials or politicians coming up with so-called solutions. It won't last. But when we change, then the world will really change. And some of us wear the yantra. We have them here. They're regarded as a good vibration, also protective. Was that more than you wanted?
What is the symbolism of how the yantra?
I'd love to.
What do you mean?
Like through the campus, I've seen them framed in different materials, and I'm just wondering what that means.
No, the framing is just the artist's choice. The artist's choice. It had no specific significance. Yes.
How does integral yoga differ from, say, Ashtanga yoga or the Buddhist meditation?
I can't speak to the other systems, but I can tell you what integral yoga is, okay? Integral yoga is a very comprehensive system that addresses every level of the individual, all aspects of life. It addresses the physical, mental, emotional, intellectual, social, and spiritual dimensions of who we are. The integral yoga system is very much based on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Do you know the Ashtanga Yoga that's contained there? What's called Ashtanga Yoga, it's an eightfold system that addresses our most outer, gross, physical behavior, all the way to the most inner, subtle, mental activity, and then takes us beyond to the transcendental state. So there's an ethical foundation known as yama and niyama, 10 precepts, 5 yama, 5 niyama, that form the first 2 limbs. So those are nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence or moderation, and non-greed. Those are the 5 precepts of yama: nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence or non-greed, and aparigraha, non-greed. They correspond to 5 of the 10 commandments, pretty much exactly. And then the 10 precepts of niyama are saucha, purity; santosha, contentment; tapas, accepting pain when it comes as help for purification; then swadhyaya, spiritual study; and then Ishvara pranidhana, worship of the divine. So those are the first 2 limbs. They refer to how we move about in the world, our social interaction, our attitudes and behavior as we function with others. Next, we come to a closer physical level, our own body. That's where asana comes in. Then we come to the subtle body, the energy body. Pranayama comes in. Now the 5th limb, pratyahara. You begin dealing with the mind directly, but the mind in its most physical expression as it goes out through the senses to grasp objects. And then the last 3 limbs, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. You're working with the mind directly, inwardly. Dharana, concentration. Dhyana, meditation. Samadhi, realization. So integral yoga gives you something to do every moment of your life. Sometimes people say, one of the funniest things to me that I ever hear is when someone says, I did my yoga today. And you know what they mean when they say that. Yeah, they did a few asanas. They, curled their body into strange positions for an hour or so, and they're done. They did their yoga. Yoga, if you're a spiritual practitioner, if you're someone who wants to make progress in your own personal growth and transformation, yoga is practiced 24/7. Swami Satchidananda used to say, yoga is not about standing on your head. It's learning how to stand on your feet. How you move through life, your attitudes, your interactions, your reactions, your behaviors. Does that give you an idea? So it includes the kirtan, the asanas, the pranayama, study, worship, and it embraces every temperament. There are like 4 basic type temperaments, I would say. One is you have people who use their will, people who like to use their intellect, those who are more emotionally oriented, and those who are more active. For the will-oriented, you have Raja Yoga. For the intellect, Jnana Yoga. For the heart, Bhakti Yoga. For action, Karma Yoga. And Raja Yoga embraces them all, as does integral yoga. So there's something for everyone, and we're all sort of a mixed blend, depending on our temperament, giving emphasis more or less to one or the other. Yes?
I'd love your thoughts on something. On June 14th, which is President Trump's birthday, and there'll be activities happening. No King's Day, some people are calling it. So I felt I wanted to teach a yoga class. And so it's easy to say yoga for peace, but I wanted to include justice making. And so I've been looking at the yamas and niyamas to kind of try and figure out, to keep it simple, where to focus in my teaching. So it's not just about peace, relaxation, it's also about finding that, whatever it is that makes us able and willing to stand up for what we perceive to be justice. So I'm just wondering if there's a particular place that comes to mind around that.
I think you're trying to take something and use it for a purpose that your heart wants to see fulfilled. I don't know if you have to bend yama and niyama to the intention you want to set for the class and transmit to the group. I'm getting the feeling you have very strong feelings about this and very clear ideas. I would trust your heart. I would trust your heart and go with that. Let your heart freely express what it has to share rather than try to fit yourself into a certain model.
Wait for the microphone, please, so we can all hear your question.
Did you say tapas was surrender?
No.
No, what?
Tapas is accepting pain.
Yeah. I almost feel like, and I struggle too, a lot with what she's struggling with, and I feel like I've come to the conclusion I just need to surrender to what is. I mean, to the pain of, seeing what's happening in the world. So I don't know. Tapas came to mind when she was asking the question for me, just surrendering to the pain of seeing what's happening and try to accept it. And like you said, change yourself and you can change the world. That's where I am right now. You know, instead of trying to change people's opinions, I'm just trying to change me now.
I would say, don't surrender to the pain. Surrendering to the pain sounds to me a little bit like allowing ourselves to be victimized by it. Don't be anybody's victim. What is, and you have to find a container within yourself to hold it in order to keep your peace as we move through this period. Everyone, I'm sure, has different views here, and everyone's entitled to their perspective and view. But if at any time the world situation or your own personal situation brings pain into your life, I would say, look at what you really believe. Look at what you really have faith in, and have that faith be a sanctuary through the storm. It could be faith in a higher power. It could be faith in a teacher, a scripture, certain people, faith in yourself, faith in the ultimate goodness of the universe. Find a place within your heart that can hold the experience in light of a positive meaning and ultimate resolution. I once read something that I found fascinating, and I never forgot. It was just a little quote. The world is not made up of atoms. It is made up of stories. And I love that. And when I thought about it, what occurred to me was different things happen in life. What matters to us is not so much the event, but how we feel about it, and the story we tell ourselves about it. And based on that story, we're facing an opportunity or a tragedy. And we have the capacity to step back and frame that story. And it makes all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. I don't know, does that make sense to people? Okay. Microphone? Here? And then there.
I'm curious about your stance on how social relationships and specifically intimate relationships can enhance spiritual growth or distract one away from spiritual growth.
Either and both. It depends on the individuals, both individuals. If you're both there to support one another in all ways, including your spiritual growth, good. If one wants the spiritual growth, but the other is pulling in other directions, then it's challenging. Then you have to decide your priorities. It's as simple as that. As simple and as difficult as that. Yeah, Krishna Das was speaking a lot about relationships yesterday. He's very blunt and direct. I'm not quite so blunt, but we all manifest as our station in life demands, in a way. But one thing I would say that he didn't mention is the quality of unconditional love. And even Swami Satchidananda would agree with what Krishnadas said yesterday. He spoke about this shortly after he came to this country. He would see couples saying, one would say, "I love you," and then there'd be the pause, because there'd be the wait for, "I love you too." And if you don't get that, "I love you too," the relationship is wrecked. So, and he asked the question, is that love? No, it's business. I give you love, you give me love. It's a transaction. But there is such a thing as unconditional love, seen most clearly with a mother and a child. Unconditional love, what does that mean? No projections, no expectations, no demands, no jealousy, no trying to turn the person into what you think you need. You love them for the joy of loving. I mean, it's great when you're in love. You feel great. The problems come when you start making demands on the other person to be a certain way. One thing that I always feel is so amusing. When you think about how difficult it is for yourself to change, did you ever really try to change a habit, change something? It's hard. So, even though it's so hard for us to change, when we don't like something in someone else, we expect them to change on a dime because we don't like it. There you go. And we do that all the time. It's insane. It's insane. Yet we all fall for that. We do it. I don't like it, so you should change it. Yes. There's someone here, and then here, please. Yes.
Hello. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the lineage. Did Swami Satchidananda leave a successor, and how does, beyond Sivananda, how does it relate to the rest of India traditions?
Well, Swami Satchidananda studied with some great teachers, among them Ramana Maharshi, Sri Aurobindo, Swami Chidbhavananda. They're represented among the photos in this room. When he found Swami Shivananda, he felt like he found everything he was looking for. And Swami Shivananda's yoga was called Purna Yoga. Purna means full, and it was essentially integral yoga. So we pretty much mark our lineage, beginning with Swami Shivananda, passed to Swami Satchidananda. Our sannyas order dates from the 8th century in India. Sri Shankaracharya, who's here somewhere, who organized and reformed all the monastics in India. So we're one of the 10 traditional monastic orders called the Saraswati order, based on the goddess of wisdom. When Swami Satchidananda was thinking about his passing, his thinking was this. I will say he understood the Western mentality, and he left us freedom. He appointed administrative successors, and we've had a few. It's changed in time, but he specified that he was not going to appoint a spiritual successor. He left that to the individual. And he said, if you find something in someone that inspires you and uplifts you, go and study with them. So in our organization, I would say probably most people still, even though he's not in his body, regard Swami Satchidananda as their guru. Also, there are many people who have found senior disciples, who have mentored them, who have taught them through the years, that they regard as their teacher or guru. And we come together as a family, as a sangha, to learn from one another, to learn from one another.
Thank you. So I have a question about the spirit, this term, which I'm sure you've heard, spiritual bypass. Have you heard of that term?
What does it mean to you?
So what it means to me is, and I've felt that in myself, is this idea that if I have this, sense of some awakening in myself that feels so good to me, that sometimes I just want to stay with that. And so therefore, what that looks like in my life, if I have a challenge, if I want to just go to a practice of some sort to elevate my level of aliveness or serenity, whatever it is, and then on some level I don't deal with the problem. So I see that as there can be a way of using practices of awareness, enlightenment, whatever I call that, where you can lead to avoiding some things in your life. And so I've struggled at times with my own spiritual growth and path in communities because there needs to be some sense of accountability. So I'm just curious, as I'm saying this, of course, for me, when I'm practicing alone or if I'm going deeply, I lose relational. So sangha or community is really important to stay current with what I'm learning and whether it's my challenges or my awakenings. That makes it relational so that I'm more grounded, if you will. And the bypass for me is kind of floating away and not being in our body in this world. So, but I'm curious in terms of what are your thoughts about, or how have you felt that in yourself along the path, the yearning to stay with that heightened consciousness?
I love the way you asked your question and then answered it so beautifully. Did you all notice that? He asked and answered. Because as you were talking, the answer that occurred to me came out of you. It's sangha, it's community. I have two of my sisters here sitting in the room. They can back me up on this. There's no way you're going to avoid facing your stuff. When you live in community, it's like when you live in a family. Everyone sees it. And if it's really big stuff, it impacts them. And you can't ignore it. And it keeps you grounded, and it keeps you integrated. Real spiritual attainment is not about having these wonderful, mystical, lights, camera, action experiences. Those are sense experiences on a more subtle level. It's the sense of going beyond all that and experiencing and then abiding in a perfect peace, a peace that's so full and overflowing that it expresses as love and compassion. And that means your practice has to become integrated into the minutia of your daily life. That's what. I once heard a story about a Zen monk. He had this far-out enlightenment experience. And he went to his teacher and he said, Master, Master, I'm enlightened. He's saying this to a Zen master. So the master isn't very impressed, and he asks, well, describe your experience to me. And the fellow thought a moment, and he said, Master, my experience is like this. A pitch black ball flies through the night. And the master looked at him like, so? And he said, can you describe it another way? Describe your experience another way. And the monk thought a moment, and he said, Master, my experience of enlightenment is like this. I drink tea at tea time. I eat rice at mealtime. That is my enlightenment. The master said, good. Now I know you've actually attained something. Yeah. What's needed in today's world, and it's the way our schedule is organized here, is a blend of the contemplative and the active life. That is what is needed for spiritual growth. And you can do it at an ashram. You can do it just as well at home in an urban center. In the morning, you have your practice to make your body easeful, your mind peaceful. Here, we meditate. We spend time in prayer and meditation. We do hatha yoga and pranayama. So you get your instrument, your body-mind vehicle, set for the day. Then you go about. Everyone here has service to do, karma yoga. Your work, your chores, whatever. Then noontime, we stop again. Center. How have I done? Have I kept my peace? Let me reestablish myself there. Then you go out again. Do whatever life has you doing. Then, around dusk, you center again. You have your evening meal, and then some study or cultural entertainment, something in the evening. And some of us, right before retiring, again, center. So it's the balance. It's the balance. Without bringing your so-called attainment into your everyday experience, you don't really know if you got anything. You know? It's just a passing flight of fancy in the mind. When your life begins becoming transformed, then you know something real is happening. So come here more often. We'll be your mirrors. We have a lot of experience at that. We've lived in a hall of mirrors here for many years. And it also engenders humility. It engenders humility when you're naked in that way, because you need that humility to grow. Otherwise, you may think you're so perfect when you're not. The very fact that you think you're so perfect is a good clue that you're not. So, okay. Oh.
Thank you. Just thank you for everything. And I really appreciated the explanation of the yantra. I've been thinking a lot about suffering and longing and love. For me, somehow, those are all connected. And in Krishna Das's talk yesterday about relationships, I feel like he sort of wove those threads. And I was wondering if you would please talk about, or what you think about suffering and longing.
Longing for what?
Well, yeah, I think I'm not really sure. I just have this feeling in me right now of longing, and I'm not really sure what I'm longing for. Am I longing for a home, a place in the world, a purpose? Am I longing for love? My life is in a bit of an upheaval right now, so there's a lot of uncertainty, and I wonder if it's that longing that is causing the suffering, and if I could just sit with what is, if I could just embrace what is, I'd give up that longing. Would I give up that suffering? What's my attachment to the suffering? I mean, this is kind of a big soup of thoughts in my head. So I'm not really sure what I'm asking you.
Oh, you just asked and answered your question as well. The longing will cause suffering. Longing is another word for desire. Desire, craving, attachment, root cause of all suffering. The Buddha, he started life as a prince, lived in all luxury and wealth, then left, became an ascetic. At a certain point, he sat down and he said, I will not budge until enlightenment dawns. That night, all the forces of darkness came out and tried to knock him from his resolve. He sat steady, and with the dawning sun, that enlightenment dawned within him. After that, he gave his first talk. I think it was called The Turning of the Wheel. Those of you who are Buddhists might know that. He gave the Four Noble Truths. The first truth, and the way I picture it happening, I see everything visually. So he comes out of this state of splendor. And then when he comes down to the level where he can look out at the world and he sees the world, the first thing that strikes him, the first noble truth, oh my goodness, so much suffering. And I picture a disciple sitting nearby writing, first noble truth, the existence of suffering. The Buddha's just going, oh my goodness, suffering everywhere. Okay, first noble truth. Then he analyzes, what is the cause? Desire and attachment. Desire and attachment. Then he asks the question, can this be stopped? Can suffering be ended? And he answers in the affirmative. Third noble truth, cessation of suffering. Final question, how? Then he gives the protocol, the Eightfold Path, similar in some ways to Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. It's almost like a medical model. He first identifies the disease, suffering. He says, okay, what's the cause? Desire and attachment. Then he asks, can this disease be cured? And he says, yes. And then he says, okay, what's the protocol we have to follow to cure the disease? That's what. Let me show you something about suffering. They have this nice chart here. This sort of explains the nature of addiction and the illusion that desire perpetuates on us, okay? This represents the state of the mind if you leave it alone. Like you said, just be with what is. If you just leave it alone, believe it or not, our minds are naturally peaceful. Hard to believe, huh? Okay. Now we're going to have a desire drop into the mental lake. So, this is what happens first. When you drop a stone in water, what happens? First thing, before the ripples, splash, a depression happens. Here I am, I'm fine. Now, I really would like some chocolate cake. Boom. There's a depression in the mind. I want chocolate cake. I'm depressed because I don't have it. What comes next? What happens after the depression when a stone drops in water? Ripples. They represent the activity to get the chocolate cake. Okay, we get the chocolate cake. What happens is we simply fill the depression that the desire for chocolate cake caused in the first place, and we get back to feeling fine. But what we think happens, this is the psychological Mayic trick, Maya delusion. This is what we think happens. We think when we had the chocolate cake, this happened. Chocolate cake made me super happy. Really, this is, actually we're getting back, we're filling the dip that the desire made, getting back to base level equanimity, but we think it made us super high. This is the underlying pattern in addiction. The underlying pattern in addiction. Yeah. There is a sutra in book 2 of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Sutra 15. It says, to one of discrimination, everything is painful. Because let's say you really want something. You work hard, you get it. So for a few moments, you're happy, you got it. But immediately after, there's a fear and anxiety of losing it. Not only that, because you had this experience of pleasure and intense satisfaction getting it, those impressions are in the mind, and they will give rise to renewed cravings to repeat it. And not only that, the mind itself is part of nature. It's made of the subtle portion of the food that you eat. So just like the outer nature is always changing, our minds are always changing. So even though I wanted that and I got it and I felt super happy because I have it, now I really don't care about it that much. So they say the gunas are tossing the mind. The forces of nature are tossing the mind at all times. So if you try to fulfill desires to get rid of suffering, you're missing the point. It's the desires that are the cause of suffering, which doesn't mean we should be free of all desires. It's the nature of the mind to desire, but it shouldn't be a desire that's a disturbance, and it shouldn't be a desire that will ultimately bring harm to you or others. But a gentle desire is part of how we move through life. Our spirituality, our philosophy should not be divorced from our humanity and our everyday experience. Okay.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm just thinking about chocolate cake constantly. I wanted to ask about boundaries and triggers, and specifically if there's an awakening to seeing how like I haven't had healthy boundaries with my family and my parents and so on. And I'm struggling with staying centered and not going into old patterns of dysfunction or behavior, and coming from being compassionate at the same time. So, yeah. How does one do that? If I haven't had healthy boundaries before and I've, in a way, carried other people more than I should, and I'm putting them down, how do I do that? I struggle with doing that and taking care of myself and honoring new boundaries. And sometimes I even struggle with being in the same room as these people that it was so normal before. And I even struggle with just eye contact. And I'm not talking about, dangerous relationships or anything, but just dysfunctions that I would like to step out of. But I still love these people, but I don't know how to yet be around them and not lose myself.
Is it possible to take a time out from these particular people?
I feel like I'm asking for permission to do that. Yeah, I think I can. It's even just wording that. How do I say that to someone who maybe is, or a couple of people who are like my parents, who are not on this path with compassion? Do I have to announce it? That's another question.
Well, these are questions you'll have to answer for yourself, but there's always taking a vacation.
Which I'm doing now.
Simple. Or telling them I'm going, if this is something you could say to them, I'm going to spend the next month or so on a personal retreat. I have certain goals I want to accomplish. So I'm going to have to necessarily scale back on my activities and communication. I hope I have your support. So you can frame it in a way that's not blaming, but just something I'm going to do for my own well-being, not referencing that we're having problems. But take a time out. And when you feel ready to come back, what occurs to me, one of the most effective ways to become more aware of and transform patterns like you're describing, triggers, boundaries, is developing the witnessing awareness as you move through life. Just as you move through life, there are two levels of the mind: the part of the mind that engages and the part of the mind that's aware. Most of the time, we're identified with the part of the mind that's engaging. It's rarely that we step back and we watch the show. So develop the capacity to step back into that part of your awareness and function from that level. That level is always neutral, it's clear, it's stable, and it can guide you in responding rather than reacting. Okay? I can talk more about that. But you do that during the day. The practice that really makes this go deep and be transformative is introspection. What you do is every night you unwind the tape of the day with particular attention to areas where these issues arose. Boundaries, triggers. You don't judge, you don't analyze, you don't make a plan about how to do better. You just witness. Then you note down in a spiritual journal what you saw. Do it every day. What will happen in time? That awareness that you're cultivating at night in introspection will begin to percolate into your daily activities, so that witnessing consciousness will be there as a matter of course. Okay? Then when you do your introspection at night, you'll see what's happening and you'll see that you were aware. Okay? As that continues over time, what will happen is, as the events are unfolding, a window will open. It's like time slows down, space opens up, and you'll have the ability to choose different responses, different behaviors. And if you're like me, for a long time, the habit will be so strong, you'll go down that same road again. But at night, when you do your introspection, you'll see that whole drama. And then the day will come when, in the situation, you make another choice, and that transformation occurs. It can happen. I'm living proof. I'm living proof of what? With an issue I was dealing with. And it takes time, takes a little effort, not much. But these are big things you're talking about. They're important things and they're deep things. So they're worth the effort. They're worth the effort. And I'll share you, I'll be a little more personal to make it real. The issue I was dealing with was anger. This was many, many, many years ago. So I worked on it. I had that victory over anger day, that moment. Little changes started manifesting in my life. But around this time, I went home to visit my parents. Spent a month there. They weren't totally happy with my choices with respect to leading a yogic life. They weren't unhappy with my being involved in yoga, but the extent to which I took it gave them cause for concern. So I stayed with them for a month. As I was going to leave, my mother came to me and said, "You know, I don't know what you're doing with that yoga. I don't understand all of it. But I will say this. You used to be very angry, and in this entire month, I didn't see that once. So something you're doing is working." And you know, your parents are the people on earth who know all your buttons because they established many of them. They were the creators, the creating force behind them. So they pushed everyone that was conceivably pushable, and they didn't get that reaction. So it works. I'll tell you another just quick story, because this is good for everyone to know. When I was working on the book Awakening, I was in Florida. I went there to get away from the daily life here so I could focus on that. My computer had a nervous breakdown. I took it to the Apple store. I'm online waiting for a 13-year-old genius to hand over my life's work to. So I'm up there, I'm the next person to be served, and this man comes into the store. He's stocky, muscular, shouting and waving some device. It was either a phone or an iPad or something. He was waving it and he was angry. And he came up to the bar right next to me, and he's shouting. And the staff there got alarmed. They went and got the security guard. They didn't know what this guy was capable of. The security guard came in. He was a tall, thin fellow. And he came and he stood right near where I was. He turned, he crossed his arms, and he just watched. He stared at the man. He didn't say a word. He didn't do a thing. He just witnessed that outrageous behavior. And the man could feel that gaze. He kept looking over. And his gestures became closer to his body. His tone then began to change and get lower. And within a few minutes, he was quietly addressing his problem with another 13-year-old genius who was helping him with it. And the guard just nodded, turned, and walked out the door. The power of witnessing, the power of shining the light of awareness to transform any thought pattern, behavioral habit, whatever you want to change. Confucius once said, it's better to light one small candle than to curse the darkness. I would say that to the woman who asked the first question about what to do in her yoga class. I think it pertains. Better to light one small candle than to curse the darkness. One candle will start dispelling it. Yeah.
Swami, do we have time for one more?
Okay.
Hello. So over the course of 50 years, you have seen and experienced a lot. Is there anything about the world, life, or people that recently surprised you?
Is there anything about what?
Is there anything about the world, life, or people in general that recently surprised you?
Recently? I'd say I'm both surprised every day and not surprised at all. I think that's the best answer. People are people. We are who we are. You know, and I think about it when I reflect on it. I think we must have been given, humanity must have been given one of the most beautiful planets in the whole universe. When you think of the untouched beauty of some areas, the vegetation, the animal life, the trees, the oceans, the lakes, the lushness, the beauty and the abundance is so extraordinary. And the day will come when humanity as a whole stops and realizes with awe and gratitude how much we have to be grateful for, including one another, and together we'll turn this planet back into a heaven on earth. That's my hope. And it can begin with us. It can begin with each one of us. Don't think I'm so little. What can I do? The power of the divine, the fullness of that is percolating within each and every one of us. What Jesus accomplished, what Buddha accomplished, all the great saints and sages, that potential is waiting within us. We just have to let it out. Do a little cleaning of the body, little cleaning of the mind. It's shining, it's just obscured. We let that light out, and this world will be transformed. So find the peace within, and then share it with others. Carry the light high so all can see. Thank you. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om.